Hello. All right, there we go. Hey, everyone. Back on our weekly stream. Oh, I should have gotten some water. You know what? I think I will get some water. I'll be right back. But okay, I am going to go get some water. Be right back. All right, welcome to the stream. My name is Billy, and today is Wednesday, which means it's the weekly live coaching call. So today, let's try and work on some more live coaching from Reddit. And if you have any questions that you want to ask me throughout the stream, you can always ask me. Be more than happy to talk to you about stuff. But this week, let's start with what we saw on YouTube. Okay, all right. So let me adjust the screen a little bit. Last week we talked about some stuff, and the coaching that I gave on last week got some comments, so I wanted to make sure and talk about some of those things. Okay, so why imagining feels better than doing it. The that video was received pretty well. People understood. The gist of the comment was coaching was that like our imagination is so good at its job. Um, the experience that we go through when we actually go through something and when we imagine it is remarkably similar, but the real life experiences has a lot more layers that we can you know take advantage of in the future. So that's why we want to ideally prefer getting more reps in reality rather than staying in the realm of imagination. But people generally avoid the real life because they're afraid of failure, they're afraid of consequences and responsibility, and perhaps we'll talk about that a little bit this stream. And yes, how do I get back lost years? This was another important topic that we discussed last time. Lost is a context, right? Context is always ascribed. Oh, sorry. Quality. Lost is a quality. Quality is always ascribed via context. So when I think of something as lost because I think about it from a certain perspective, certain context. So when we don't try to change, we don't try to switch the view. So for example, the who is universally seen as a bad guy, like Hitler, right? So instead of thinking like Hitler's a really, really bad person, but how do I think of Hitler as like a good person? Instead of thinking it in terms of like that, right? We try to look at the context in which we view Hitler as a, bad person. So this already got off to a pretty rocky start because now it feels like I'm an apologist, but that's sort of the but you know what? Let me tell you a little bit more about this particular example. So, I'm a life coach and I'm a certified life coach, right? And in life coach certifications, we talk about a lot of these like deeper topics because turns out um, if you're just going to talk about easy cases and if you're just going to talk about the most ordinary problems that people go through in life, you don't really need a certification to kind of help people, right? If you're generally good at interpersonal communication, if you're generally good at looking at the big picture and giving advice, especially because this kind of advice you don't have to follow, um, then I think like you don't even need a coaching certification. So coaching certification is about really learning the deep mechanics around how the human mind works and being able to answer like any coaching situation, right? Okay, so a lot of the times, the general if we get to specific problem solving, oh, I want to make more money. Oh, I want to, be better at XYZ. Those don't really require like deep expertise of the human mind. But when it comes to like, I'm deeply unhappy with my life and I am just seething in anger all the time and I don't know what to do with myself. And I have this really deep, like a problem that stems from my childhood and I've lived like this forever, but I don't know if I can change. So these things have to do with very, very, very deep rooted beliefs about something, right? About their personhood or about their childhood, about their experiences. Like there's a belief that's so deep in there. And when you have a deep belief like this, right, um, it's really difficult to change those because in the mind, there's a really good reason for believing in those things. And so we try to think about recontextualizing, and what's a very popular word in coaching? Reframing, right? So we try to reframe a lot of things, and then the ultimate lesson is anything can be reframed in a different perspective. But when there's an entire room of people who are learning this at the same time, there's bound to be some people who are going to disagree. There's bound to be some people who want to challenge this belief, right? And so, but what about cases that are like super bad, like like child abductions, and then ultimately it all boils down to Hitler. So, like, can Hitler be a good person? Like, and not really trying to argue like the things that he did is like good or like can be seen as good, but more like um we tend to hold certain beliefs in greater strength than others. So for example, is pizza good? Is pineapple pizza good? Like, is pizza good and is pineapple pizza good? They're both questions related to pizza, but like one's a general question about pizza, one's a question that's about a very specific type of pizza that's very incendiary. And so you can see how certain ideas, certain beliefs take time to kind of like shake loose a little bit, and then the public perception around it can be changed. Like, there's some examples of how somebody who is so beloved and is like a really great person, and then it slowly changes over time, and then they become a bad person, right? Like Bill Cosby was a really generally beloved figure for a very long time, and then Hannibal Buress surfaced this story up, and then it became big, and then now the public perception around Bill Cosby has drastically changed, right? So everything really depends on context, and but this also gets a little bit of a bad rep because people think that, oh, in that case, nothing matters because everything can be recontextualized into anything. So there's no good or bad. And I'm gonna live my life whatever the fuck the way I want. And I'm just gonna go off the rails and blah, blah, blah. Who cares? There's no good or bad. But this kind of nihilism, how do I say that actually? Let's like nihilism. Okay, nihilism. Nihilism is not really what we are going for, right? When I say everything is contextual, it isn't meant to say nothing holds any meaning, so let's do whatever we want. Let's go into an anarchistic society and let's fuck all rules and just live like animals. That is not what I am proposing. So, in the grand context, what we are really looking for is we don't want to suffer, right? Suffering is the thing that we are trying to get away from. Suffering is what we want to liberate ourselves from. So, if a belief is giving me suffering, That is what I really want to be addressing. That's what I want to be shaken loose from. That's what I want to reframe. That's what I want to recontextualize, right? So, I'm not arguing that lost years is a stupid illusion because all years are, have no meaning. So the best years of your life have no meaning, lost years have no meaning. So it's pointless and it's a waste of time thinking about this stuff. That's not the point that I'm trying to argue, but unfortunately, when it comes to like recontextualizing and the inherent emptiness of things, people misunderstand it in this way. People misunderstand it to mean that nothing holds any meaning. So of course, could you interpret it like that? Sure, but even that interpretation is contextual, right? So it's contextual to the deeper assumption that nothing has to have any meaning. But the thing is, I suffer so much when I think about my past as a lost year, right? And I've wasted so much time in my life and I can't get it back, and time only moves forward, and other people are so much better off than me, and I'm still stuck at life doing this. So again, this is a very suffering prone way to think about things. But why is it suffering prone? Because what makes me think? What kind of a perspective am I employing when I am looking at my past? That's what's providing the suffering, right? So, how can I look at the same thing from a different perspective so that it is empowering, so that I can be free from suffering? That is the perspective that we are all interested in and cultivating when it comes to my YouTube channel. All right. Why do I hate people? Oh yeah, so this is a series of video that I did because like I wanted to understand the human behavior of when it comes to like why do I blah blah blah, and I wanted to answer those like really common questions. And let's maybe do another thing like that. Okay, so oh, it doesn't show the panel. Okay. But what I'm seeing here is why do I feel so empty? Why do I hate myself? Why do Indians shake their heads? I think it's referring to this one. Why do I love you? Why do I always feel like somebody watching me? Oh, maybe that's a good topic for discussion. Okay. So let's organize this and then I can kind of have it up. Mm. So I think I did why do I feel so empty, but maybe I can do a reinterpretation of why do I feel so empty. Okay, why do I hate myself? And today I think I want to talk about this guy. Why do I always feel like somebody's watching me? Because that is something that I relate to a lot. Okay, now just setting up the images. Images. Screenshots. Why do I feel so empty? Hmm. Restaurants like Subway or Chipotle where they fill up the sandwich or the bowl according to your order. Okay, so suppose you are going to just a restaurant, right? Maybe you're going to a high-end restaurant, and then you order a certain plate. And it being a Michelin star, highly rated restaurant, it's a giant plate and it's artistic and there's little food in the middle, right? It's meant to be a tasting menu for your mouth. It's an amuse-bouche. But you look at it and it's like, wow, it's like beautifully presented food. It looks so good. Okay, but now let's go to Subway. And you look at a piece of bread that's open, but like there's some skimpy little amount of spinach and salad, and then like two tomatoes, and then like, like some tuna salad. Okay, so it has a bunch of stuff in here, but if you're a Chipotle or Subway, like that's a very lackluster sandwich, right? Or if you're looking at a burrito bowl, but like, it's only half full with, beans and rice and whatever protein you choose. It's a very skimpy, it's a very lacking bowl, right? But how come when we look at a Michelin star plate, we don't perceive it as empty? But how come when we look at a Chipotle bowl, it has so much more food, but it looks empty? Why do I feel so empty? Assumes that it needs to be fuller. When you go to a high-end restaurant, it's assumed that the plate is going to be big. Like this negative space is assumed to be a part of the dining experience. Whereas if you go to Subway or Chipotle, you're expecting it to be filled up to the brim. So it's that expectation that makes it feel empty, right? So you have the classic example of glass half full, half empty. So that's a metaphor to it's a tool to kind of get you to think about your default positivity and default negativity, right? But why do I feel so empty? It's because you're in your assumption, you are thinking that your life needs to be fuller. It needs to have more substance. But there is no such requirement. Whatever your life is just what it is. And it's up to you to take what's actually in your life right now and make the use of it. Make the best use of it. Okay, so that's basically why I feel so empty. I have this assumption, I have this implicit agreement with myself saying that life needs to feel very full. Mm. Next one. Why do I hate myself? Why do I hate myself? In Buddhism, anger is one of the very important enemies that we seek to overcome when we become practitioners of Buddhism. Because anger is such a potent emotion that causes a lot of harm and damage to ourselves and other people around us. So, when we get down to anger, we seek to understand it instead of trying to like suppress it, instead of trying to, deal with it by like accepting it. We try to understand anger. Why do we get angry? And the reason why I'm talking about this in this particular video is because when you really study your anger, when you really try to understand your anger tends to lead you towards one destination. You tend to be angry at things that impact you negatively. it has this thing where you have this perception where there's a lot of things that don't impact you as much. And then you have this thing that impacts you. Like it feels like it's attacking your core. And when that is triggered, that's when you get angry, right? So this question is asking, why do I hate myself? There's a part of you that you believe is detrimental to yourself. So, for example, you find yourself lazy, you find yourself procrastinating, you find yourself not attractive enough, you find yourself not persistent enough. These are qualities you find in yourself and you find them harmful to yourself. So, because you are the one responsible for damaging and harming yourself, you make yourself angry and you hate yourself. But the thing is, this is not a static quality of yourself. This quality is a current reflection of how you have cultivated your life. And depending on how you cultivate your life in the future, that's when you can change this relationship. Why do I hate with myself? Hey, I'm Checo Pizza. How's it going? Why do I struggle being constant in studying? Well, that's a good question. So, being constant with anything is pretty it's pretty strange because you breathe constantly, but you don't think about breathing constantly, right? And breathing constantly isn't hard at all. You eat and poop and drink constantly, but you don't naturally think about it as something that requires constant maintenance, right? So, there's a lot of things you already know how to do constantly. So you might already know this, but it's not the matter of consistency that is difficult. Not all consistent things are difficult, right? So what I'm trying to get you to question within yourself is, suppose there are two things and they are both consistent. And one of them requires no effort at all, and one of them requires effort. What do you think the difference between the two is? So a I don't know if you are a gamer or not, but suppose let's pick the hypothetical example of games because I like playing games. So suppose I have to play any kind of a form of a video game every day. I have to, okay? Whether it be a phone game, whether it be a rock, paper, scissors with my wife, or whether it be Path of Exile 2, like I have to play a game every single day. Versus, I have to study a foreign language every day. So just to make it more even, like okay, so just to make it more even, suppose I have option number one, I have to play a game for an hour every day, no exceptions. I have to play a game every day. Versus, I have to study every day, every single day. I have to study a foreign language every day. So why does one feel a lot easier than the other, right? That's a really good thing because that's what's really at stake. It's not the consistency that's difficult. It's something about this thing that you find difficult. And the best way to examine it, the best way to kind of like, what is that? The best thing to ponder and wonder is by comparing it to something that's relatively so easy, right? So to help you with that right now, since you're here with me, we tend to, this may sound obvious, struggle with things that we don't want to do. We tend to not struggle with things that we do want to do, right? So, what this question is really asking is, how do I do something I don't want to do as if I want to do it? So, the question itself already, when you rephrase the question in this way, you already see the meat and the crux of the problem, right? You're trying to look at something that you don't want to do, and you want to engage it in a way as if you enjoy doing it. But internally, you do not enjoy it, right? So that's the meat of the issue. That's the meat of, I don't want to do this. So now that we have a better understanding of the problem, right? So it's not your personal character flaw. Like, it's not that you suck at studying constantly. It's a more general human behavior to study. How do we nurture a better relationship with the things that we don't want to do, right? And in that case, lots of different avenues that you can go to. But since you're here again, uh, going to give you some more avenues on how to approach this. Not all things that feel good are necessarily good for me, right? And not all things that feel bad are necessarily bad for me. So, I know brushing my teeth is tedious. But you know what sucks even more than, brushing my teeth? Having a really painful dentist visit. And, I know that chocolate fudge brownie after every meal is amazing. But you know what really sucks? Needing to cut weight before my competition. So, it's many people assess good, bad based on the feeling. So, when we follow that, we generally do things that feel good, and sometimes a lot of the things that feel good are actually good for us. But also a lot of the times the things that we feel good isn't necessarily good for us, right? So we always get a mixed batch of results when we pursue and when we follow things that only feel good. We have to understand, just by following what feels good, we have to accept that this is going to be one of the downsides of our lives. Oh, you know what? I generally do things I want to do. And that means I am going to have a bad relationship with certain things. So accepting it like this is one way. So, right, I want to always feel good. Okay. So, am I gonna, if I need to study for a certain test, am I gonna struggle a bit? Yeah. Why? Because I've cultivated a, enjoying relationship with my life, right? And I don't enjoy studying, so it's okay. Okay, so this sucks, but after this is done, I'm gonna have a good time. I'm gonna pursue feeling good again, so that's fine. This is one of the, downsides that I have to learn how to take. And that way, you can have a more relaxed relationship with struggling. But another alternative way is really deeply thinking about, like, okay, is studying actually good for me? Like, why do I want to study this? How is it going to benefit me? And we generally say that studying is, good, and, like, learning a lot of things is good. And we generally think that having a college degree, we generally agree that, taking good test exams and having a good job is good for us. But, like, now if you want to go a little bit more contemplative way, you can start thinking about, is it actually good for me? Like, my parents want me to be a doctor, hypothetically, but do I want to be a doctor? Like, yes, I understand that jobs that require a lot of studying is probably more prestigious, right? But is that the life that I actually want? Like, what if I really want to be a painter, but you know, I'm forced to study astrophysics? Is that the life that I want? So in that case, turns out studying is not only doesn't feel good, but also isn't really all that beneficial to your life, right? So why do I need to study? And depending on that answer, you can have a deeper introspection about, okay, so based on what I want in my life, yeah, I do need to study, whether I like it or not, because the downside of not studying is gonna cost me a lot more than the downside of struggling a bit right now. So when you can be a little bit more clear about the stakes, what's at stake, and you are at stake, right? Your happiness is at stake. When you think about it in terms of that dimension, you're gonna find it a lot easier to kind of like refocus. But the last thing I'll say about this is it also depends on your relationship with how you generally react to stress. So some people have a high stress tolerance, some people don't, right? I call it resiliency. Some people um, are really able to withstand a lot of things. Some people get really triggered at the smallest things. But while there is a while there is a component of natural affinity to stress, other times, even if a person is naturally resilient to stress, if they're like really, really experiencing a prolonged period of stress and then another stress compounds on top of it, then you even if they're naturally resilient, they might fall down because they have a lot going on in their lives. So maybe if you're more relaxed about it, even if it's like stressful to study, you can get yourself together and then continue going. But suppose number one, you're behind on rent. Number two, your parents are always calling you about things that they want you to take care of. Number three, you're having a bad time in your relationship. And number four, your boss hates you. So if all of these things are going on, and you have to study, of course your life is going to be more difficult, right? Of course you're going to have a worse time with being in the study mode, right? So your natural level of stress and your natural level of resiliency, that's something that you want to take into account. And to help you with that, I have a sorry, there's a resilience test that I have. This exam, not exam, this evaluation, it's quite a lot of questions, but it's because it gives you a lot more detail into this evaluation is very, very detailed about what areas of your life you have resiliency in and what areas of your life you don't have resiliency in. So as you take this evaluation, you're going to be able to see like statistically where you lie in terms of your natural resiliency, your natural response to stress, and how you can be better equipped with stress. And that's, I think, yeah, I gave you a bunch of answers, but hopefully you some of that helped and you can ask me more questions. Unfortunately, I have to study German for work, even though I never use it. But if I don't get B2 until March, I'll lose my job. Yeah, so I understand because I'm also trying to move to France. So in order for me to move to France, I need to be able to speak French, right? Alors, j'apprends français et je veux prendre l'examen DELF, DELF. Et je dois obtenir le niveau C1 pour travailler en France. So, like you see, I'm trying my best to learn French, but getting C1 level is really difficult. So yeah, I'm assuming German test also has some level like B1, B2. But yes, so first of all, I want to say I relate to your struggle as a foreign language learner myself. Okay, so unfortunately, I have to study German for work, even though I never use it. But if I don't get B2 until March, I'll lose my job. Sure. Okay. So now, this assumes you have already decided, right? I never use it. But what if now that you know how to speak a little bit of German, like what if you take a, field trip or like a little vacation to Germany and then you find that, oh, it's this serendipitous trip and then turns out it was really pleasant and then you make some good friends and life is always full of possibilities, right? So I'm not, I guess what I'm really trying to say with that example is number one, sure. So it's kind of simple. Do you want to lose your job or not? That makes it a little bit simple, right? But I think that is still not the ideal way to think about it. Why? Because do you want to lose your job or not? This means having a job is really important. And this assumes you are at the mercy of your employer, right? Whether your life is going to be good or not, whether your life is going to be stable or not, is up to your employer. It's up to your job. Your job is the one that gets to decide whether you have a good time in your life or not. So, I'm not saying, oh, fuck your job, go be a natural person, live in the caves like a wild person. Nah, I'm not arguing that. I understand jobs are important. I understand financial stability is important. I understand, the ability to put food on your table is very, very important. But at the same time, your happiness, your agency in life, your sense of self, I don't think it should depend on your job. So, oh no, I might lose my job. That already comes from an internal place of a relative lacking of power over your employer. But why think about it that way? You're a very powerful person. You're a person with something burning inside of your heart. You have a lot more agency in your life than you think. You are the one actually benefiting your employer, because without you, they're going to have to hire somebody, and then hiring somebody is really hard, and they need to train them up to speed. Like, they don't know all the things about your job that you know, so they need to spend more money into training them. So when you think about it that way, as much as you depend on your employer kind of depends on you. So now I want you to take that power back to yourself. You don't have to study because of your job. You don't have to study because your employer is going to do XYZ. That's the line of thinking that makes you lose power. What I want you to think about is, you know what? If I study German, not only will it help me with my job, it's gonna open more doors into my life. And, like, this is something I can say as a foreign language, learner myself, and I also speak other languages, right? I speak Korean. Like, learning a language itself is kind of an interesting thing to do. Like, you get to really learn a lot more about the culture of a certain language. And when you learn the culture of a certain language, you learn the history. And when you learn the history of a certain culture, then it kind of helps you round your perspective. It broadens your horizons. It gets you out of your like really narrow perspectives about life, and it makes you more open-minded. And it gives you it affords you the ability to be more of a global citizen in this new world, right? So maybe um if you feel like this is a complete waste of time, I want you to understand you do have the option of you quitting your job too, right? Oh, you know what? Like, for example, suppose you are a chemical engineer, right? But your job is forcing you to take gymnastics classes. Okay, but like, I can be doing so many more other things with my life, right? Like, why do I have to subject myself to that? You may find it completely ridiculous, and you may opt to, you know what? I'm gonna go take a job that's more about chemical engineering rather than all these like other shenanigans. That's completely up to you too, right? So we started off with the question of why do I struggle with being constant in studying, but I think what's really important for you, based on the additional context you gave me, is that regardless of what my job says, I want to be the main driver of my decisions. If I'm gonna study German, sure, like, my studying of German will help me with my job too, but I want to make sure I study German because I want to study German. Or I don't want to study German, but I'm going to decide that, being good at my job and, having this job is more important for me in the longer run. So for example, suppose you want to start a business in the next 5 years and you need this job to save up the savings so that you can start with the seed money. So in that case, like even though you hate German, you can still look at it in that way, like, no, this is a decision that is still empowering my future, right? And in that way, like, although you hate the ordinary everyday experience of studying German, you still are working towards your future, right? Like, I'm a prior to my life coaching, I was a software engineer, and I was in the realm of big data. So I'm primarily familiar with the product called Databricks, and my new management wanted us to do this thing called Snowflake, which is another data provider. So I have the option of learning Snowflake, and I also have the option of thinking that I'm forced to learn Snowflake. But that how I think about my life is up to me. Like my management can offer some choices. Hey, you have to get on board with Snowflakes because we're gonna completely deprecate Databricks and we're gonna not do whatever you were doing. We're gonna go a new way. My boss didn't put it in this way, but even if they did, how I decide to take that information is up to me. How I decide to live my life is up to me. Nobody can take that away from me, right? So it's about self-agency. All right. Now let's go to the last prompt of the day. Why do I always feel like somebody's watching me? It's a pretty interesting one. Yeah. Good. Loving your job is very important. Yeah, I love my job. I love being a life coach. So I relate to that as well. No problem. You're always welcome. Your brain is really good at pattern recognition. As humans, our brains have adapted over time to be really good at certain tasks, and pattern recognition is one of them. That's why we do a lot of puzzles better than a lot of different animals. Now, one of the things that our brain excels at when it comes to recognition is the recognition of good and bad. That's what drives positive reinforcement and negative reinforcement, right? One of the things that it's best at is sensing danger. Danger is not only bad in terms of the good bad dichotomy, danger also happens to touch the animal side of ourselves, related to survival. So, in your life, if you have had an experience where you felt a sense of danger unexpectedly from somebody who was hiding or somebody who surprised you or something came out of the blue, then your mind is going to hyper optimize for that and make sure that it has the lowest chance of happening in the future. So you were carefree and you were living however you want, like, oh, life is good, blah, blah, blah. And then something happened out of the blue when somebody came to you and gave you the impression that they were observing you. And then because of that, you were in danger. And this experience gets imprinted in the back of your mind. And now, because it has such a visceral experience with being observed, and the consequences of being observed were so dangerous to you, your mind is always on the lookout. That's why you feel like someone's always watching you. So, understanding the human quirks of the brain is very important. And in general, understanding a lot of things is broadens your horizon and generally leads to a happier life. Okay, so that's the YouTube section. Now, let's browse Reddit together for a little bit. And you can tell that I play Path of Exile. Coaching. Okay. Wasted 2 years of my life doing nothing but gaming. It's tempting to think that, especially with gaming, it's tempting to think that if you spend prolonged amount of time gaming, it's a waste of your life. But gaming actually teaches you a lot about life because what makes games fun in the first place is a natural part of our dopamine cycle. So, game design is all about taking the fun out of experiences that we perceive as fun. So, game developers think about encounters and experiences they have had in the past. And they spend a lot of time thinking about what was the fun factor in that? Like, why was that so enjoyable? Why was that so entertaining? And through this examination, you are able to abstract that and then develop it further. And that's what is responsible for games, right? So, after a prolonged amount of time playing games, you get really familiar with that mechanic of fun. Knowing what is fun for you is very, very important because when you know what makes you click, you can modify whatever you're doing to adapt to your version of fun. And so with gaming, not only do you understand your version of fun, you also understand human behavior of how humans perceive something to be fun when you're looking at the community responses to certain patch notes, right? And also, you in this post, you talk a lot about like hardware, right? And so you okay, so yeah, like, but you see, like, when the game started out with the new PC, so learning about hardware, especially in this climate where prices of things are very high and the customized PC is more and more valuable, that's also a good knowledge to have, right? So it's really tempting to think that games are a waste of life. But when you think about games in a different perspective, games can be actually very empowering to you and give you a lot of fuel to continue to use in the next phase of your life. So, gaming, very underrated in my opinion. How do I stop limerence as a married woman? Hmm. This post goes into a lot of depth about their experience with limerence. So, married, have been with the husband for 10 years, genuinely happy in marriage, always been loyal and faithful, but started talking to a coworker from another country. Very attractive and enjoyed the attention he's giving me, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so some parts that stand out to me are, well, not some parts. The one part that really stands out to me is this part. So, I also have BPD, and I've seen some videos suggesting there's a connection with BPD and limerence. I'm not sure how accurate that is, but I'm curious if anyone has experience with that. So, there's good awareness around what they have done and like how the events have progressed. But what the question so the question is that's being asked is, how do I stop limerence, right? And to give you that answer, limerence has to come from somewhere, right? And because there's this lack of understanding, where did this come from, it's being attributed to potentially BPD. Is that why it is? Basically, it's an outsourcing of answer because this person doesn't understand where it's coming from. But the thing is, of course, external guidance around, like, oh, this is a psychological phenomenon, it tends to happen because of these chemicals, those are very valuable informations to know, right? Based on clinical studies, XYZ has an impact on XYZ. That's all valuable information. But psychologically, what about this coworker was so attractive? So it says he's very attractive, but what about it? His eyes. But what about his eyes? Is it that it's new? His accent. But like, is it what kind of an accent? Like, what if it was an accent from a different country? So are all foreign speakers with that accent, like, attractive? Oh, maybe it's a combination of all these things. Okay, so if there's another person with the same combination, are we gonna fall for it again? So this kind of an introspection around exactly where is it coming from is really what's needed. So at the core of it, what it needs to lead down to is, it's not that this person had these conditions that made me fall for this. No, it's more about, I felt a certain way when I saw this person. And when I engaged in limerence, I felt this particular satisfaction. And this particular satisfaction was missing from my life, and it felt new to me. Oh, okay, okay. So that kind of an internal investigation, an internal checking of, what did I feel? Why did this feel so pleasant? And when it is lacking, why it is difficult? Why is it difficult for me to let go? If What am I imagining will happen if I let this go? What state will I fall back to? Do I find my ordinary life boring? Is that why? Like, these types of internal inquiries is what helps you understand limerence and put a stop to it if you want to. Okay. Confronting someone face to face when they're being condescending actually worked. confronting someone can work or it can backfire, but in this case it worked, and this original poster wants to understand why it worked. Now, we obviously live our lives in our heads. So we have a tendency to look at things from our perspective. The thing is, this post is saying, I recently confronted someone one-on-one about being condescending and rude towards me. But I am the one interpreting this person's message as being condescending and rude to me. So chances are the other person does not intend it to be that way. And when that person receives feedback from you saying, hey, you're being condescending and rude towards me, it may be news to them. And it may be it may not be the way that they actually intended to communicate with you. In that case, it warrants an apology. So it's a case of you had a genuine conversation, you had a genuine communication about how you interpreted this message. And it was a clarification. Did you intend for this message to land this way? Because if so, I don't appreciate it. So this kind of putting the message out there between two people and having a collective look at each other, that's what makes this kind of a scenario work. But is it always going to be the case where other people are willing to communicate with you about looking at the message that was just said and being in harmony about what to think about it? Not necessarily, right? But so I wouldn't go as far as to say this absolutely works. But the general approach of when you are having communication difficulties, taking that message and objectively having a nice effort at objectively looking at the message together, trying to piece together the intentions behind it, communicating upon that, I think is a generally good strategy for social skills. All right. So that is about the hour, and now I got to do some of my errands. So that's going to be it for this week's stream. And thank you so much for joining, and thank you so much for your questions. As always, you are welcome to ask me more questions on my YouTube in the comments section, or you can send me an email at billy@julylifecoach.com. My website, julylifecoach.com, has a lot of interactive experiences that can help you with the topics that were discussed in today's video, and I would love it if you would check it out. It's like an entire content platform built around life coaching. Okay, with that, I will see you guys later next week, and before then, some videos in YouTube. All right, have a nice week. Bye bye.